Hi, my name's Faceman Art, and today we're going to be doing an art tour. I'm joined by my esteemed co-host and assistant, Pogo. He's a little bit comatose right now, but he'll get into it. Anyway, we're going to be jumping into an art tour today, so we're going to start with some sketchbooks and move on to digital art. Unfortunately, I don't have sketchbooks from when I was really young, but I have from about 2008, when I was about 12 or 13, until 2015 or 2016, so just after high school. And there's a good progression of development there. I'm hoping that this video can be used for people that are looking at how their own style is developing and kind of use it as a point of reference, not really to see how my progression exactly went, just as kind of like a data point to use in reference to your own progression. So yeah, we'll be starting with sketchbooks, like I said, and be moving on to digital art. I'm excited. Let's hop into it. All right, we're all set up. We're going to be starting with the sketchbook, which was just the art sketchbook I had for grade 8 and 9 for the classes that I took as an option. So I'm going to kind of go through this one quickly. There isn't too much to dissect. Maybe a little bit. You're seeing some weird surrealist ideas here that we can look at, but for the most part, this is prompts that were given to me that I then filled. But this is very amateur work, as it should be. I was only 12 at the time. And in this video, you'll probably see some skips going back and forth, and I will also do my best to make sure that it is done chronologically throughout these sketchbooks, but I have set it up that hopefully that will be the result. This piece I've always been pretty proud of. It kind of stands out to me compared to the rest of the stuff in this book. As you can see, there's still not much of a grasp of form. I'm drawing a lot of ideas and 2D shapes, but nothing that really fills out a 3D space. And you can especially see it in this portrait here. I did just want to note that this video is going to be much more relaxed, probably not many memes thrown in, although there might be a few. I guess just sit back and enjoy. Here we were trying some charcoal stuff. As a kid, I drew a lot of trees. It may not come through in its in the skill that I show here, but just something about drawing a big trunk and then smaller and smaller branches always seemed to kind of calm me down. And that's the end of that one. Unfortunately, this is a theme that you'll see throughout a couple sketchbooks. Sometimes I only finish half of them and just never get back to completing a full one. This is, I believe, the only sketchbook that I have completed 100%. And part of that reason, if you can look at how thin it is, it did not start this way. I tore out a lot of these pages just out of frustration or pieces that I didn't like. You know, looking back on it now, I kind of wish I kept it. I think that might be an important lesson that I can share is hold on to your art. I think there's value in looking back and seeing where you came from and how your style or how your skills developed. So this is for probably the beginning of high school. So we're looking at 2010 to 2011. And definitely you can already see a much closer resemblance to the style that I even have now. Obviously, quite a few steps away from that. This one seems a little out of place, and that's because it actually is. This was a commission that I received for a comic book character. I believe the original plan was to do 3 comics, and they wanted to see what character design I had. You know, they gave me a prompt, and this is kind of what I did. They actually liked what I did, and they wanted to follow up, but I decided that this was not really in my wheelhouse, and I told them to find another artist, unfortunately. But that's how it goes sometimes. I mentioned it in my last video about overcoming artist block, about how I would draw lots of weird eyes and mushrooms and trees and stuff, and sometimes hands, and I think that's coming across. You can see in this sketchbook here. I've always been really proud of this piece. I don't know exactly why. This was obviously done without reference. Everything that I sketched up until just recently probably was done without reference. And it's not like it's super impressive, but this piece has always kind of held a special place in my heart. And I actually did a digital art version of this, and I looked for hours preparing for this video, not just for this piece, but for a lot of pieces. And unfortunately, they got lost to corrupted hard drives or, you know, the sands of time, whatever it may be. Never was one to color much of my art, but There's a rare glimpse at some pencil crayon. Especially compared to my grade 8 and grade 9 sketchbook. You're seeing a lot more animals and stuff. And this piece in particular, I would say, was the foundation of a lot of what came afterwards. This was the first time I felt like I actually kind of had a style in drawing this piece. It's very weird and kind of surreal. And yeah, I always remember this piece when I think back of kind of how my style developed over the last decade plus. And of course, you're gonna have some edgy teen stuff. You know, I was in grade 10. This is a brain being squished into a box because everyone's exactly the same. Such deep thoughts that no one has ever had before. And this is actually a really important piece to me as well. This is kind of my only OC, if I can call it that. His name is Tony. He's a skinless cat. Skinless! He's a hairless cat. And I actually had plans to draw him quite a bit when I first came up with him. Yeah, you can see right here, I had do Tony sketch practices. Unfortunately, I was never one to do much practice, and that's kind of what this channel and the first couple of videos have really been about, is, you know, forcing myself to take the step as an artist to do practice and reference and really learn the fundamentals of art. And it's just something that I've never really done even growing up. But this cat is something that I do kind of want to jump back to. There he is again. So this is a much more developed version of Tony. The first one was kind of just an idea. And here we have lots of weird lines and nooks and crannies and muscles, and it just looks kind of disgusting. I really like the idea of this hairless, gross cat named Tony. And I think maybe one day I'll do another art piece of him. Here you can see that style again of just lots of line work, weird shapes, animals. And this is stuff that even today you see in a lot of my work. And definitely at this time I was influenced by a lot of meditation practices, third eye stuff, some illicit drugs, and it kind of came through in my development as an artist. Some work that's a lot less developed than the others. This is also I don't know if I actually found it. I might have. I have to double check. This is a digital piece, or it became a digital piece eventually. I won't mention it on every piece, but as we move through, I'm sure you'll see some of these once we hop into the desktop in a more finished state. I like this piece a lot too. I also did this digitally, and I thought the piece came out really cool, but it's another one that's been lost to the ether. Who knows where it is. I've always really liked this piece as well because it was kind of my first attempt at foreshortening. And it's kind of a cheat of just drawing a hand and then a smaller guy behind it. But I think the idea is still cool. More edgy teen stuff. Ironically, this kind of foreshadows my latest piece. So I will show off the latest piece that I completed just a couple weeks ago in this video, just to kind of show where I am now. But first we got to get through years and years of work here. Dirty meat. We have some pen sketching here. I've always been tempted to get good at sketching with a pen because it's like having no undo button or no eraser, and I think it develops a lot of important skills as an artist, but I've never really taken the plunge into sketching with just a pen. And I think that's it. So yeah, this is the only full sketchbook I think I've ever completed, and even that is with a little asterisk because I tore out a lot of pages. Okay, this next one I believe is probably around grade 11, maybe some grade 12. So we're looking at, I was born in a lucky year. All my grades line up with a year. So we're looking at 2011, 2012, maybe some 2013. Here we can see, and even a little bit here, if I go back, we can see the development of drawing anatomy at a very exaggerated and usually very thin extreme. So I just kind of like how joints and fingers, and you can especially see it in the hips here, how those lines kind of look. And I started developing that a lot more, I think, in this sketchbook, of drawing really thin characters to accentuate parts of the anatomy that I liked. Even for aliens, apparently. I always thought this would be a cool idea to expand upon, and I kind of did in one of my pieces entitled "From Nature You Were Birthed," that has an elk being tangled up by a bunch of hands. It's not exactly this idea, but it's funny to see how, you know, ideas kind of mirror each other, even years away from each other, on pieces that you work on. This is actually my childhood dog, Bonnie. This turned into a Christmas gift from my mom that I did digitally with Bonnie, Willow, and Rugrat, my 3 childhood dogs. I think she really liked that. So this was a project that I started that was supposed to be a realistic and gross take on Pokemon. So this was going to be coughing, I believe, and I would go through and redraw Pokemon in a really gross way. And here we have some boxes for other ideas that, of course, I never followed through on, as we discussed earlier. This was actually the beginning of, a album cover that I did for a friend of mine. And here we have more edgy teen stuff. The national banks, we the people, let us return to our natural positions. Just stuff that makes you cringe now, but you can see how. So eventually I went to university for a few semesters for political science, international relations, and you can see these kind of politically charged ideas throughout my art. And here we have a collection of different hands and sketches, which are much closer to how I draw hands nowadays. And it's funny to see that there was such a progression over such a short amount of time. But once you kind of find a way to draw something that you're happy with, that kind of fits your style, it's easy to fall into redrawing it over and over again. And I don't know if this was the first time I drew my hands like this, but whatever it was seemed to have stuck, and I'm still doing it to this day. This was all for a digital piece, the last 10 pages or so, that you guys will see when we jump over to the desktop. Here we have some kind of enemy being. Actually, I vividly remember drawing this. Was when I was in the hospital for some unfortunate health-related issues, and the nurse came in and made a comment about how dark and weird it was. This is the beginning of sketches for a game that I was developing with a few friends. I can actually throw on an overlay of maybe some gameplay of the game I was developing. I developed that game on and off for a couple years. There were a few friends that I had met through a team that I started for developing Binding of Isaac mods. We created a mod pack called Alpha Birth, and once that kind of ran its course, we splintered off and started our own game company called Team Mutiny. And these were some of the designs for one of the games that we were developing. Never came to fruition, but actually just recently I've started jumping back into those old files just to relive some good memories and maybe get back into game development a little bit. This is actually still in the game. It's called a Selk. It's a slug elk. Okay, so this is obviously a massively jump forward, and I believe I know what this is. So this was last year. I wanted to get back into traditional drawing. You can see 2022. I hopped in here, some very basic practices, shape and form, a weird animal that is that you'd expect from me, and that is it. So you can see how long my strive to jump back into traditional art lasted when I got back into it last year. And I'm hoping this YouTube channel kind of keeps me a bit more honest and I can stick to a better practice schedule moving forward. One more to go through here. before we go to digital. Now this might be a little weird to configure. It might be a little bit off center. So this sketchbook is probably 2012-ish to 2015 maybe, random sketches. I'm not sure exactly, but it should probably be in that time frame. This is probably my only sketch that I know of that I used marker on. I'm not a big fan of marker, but kind of cool here. I do like how the depths of this eye came in with the muscle fibers behind it. It's kind of interesting. You know, sometimes, oh yeah, you can definitely see it. Sometimes you really run into a roadblock or something sketching. And yeah, we actually discussed it in my last video about overcoming artist block. Sometimes to get over it, you know, there's plenty of strategies. One of them is just redrawing things that already exist. I don't know if I traced these or not. I feel like I probably just drew them freehand with reference, but sometimes just to get the creative juices flowing, you gotta just copy a little bit. Yes, I believe this piece was 2015 or 2016 because it became a digital piece, so that kind of lines up what I was thinking with when this sketchbook was done. Oh, right. So there's going to be a lot of political stuff, I'm guessing, in here. Like I said, I did major in political science and international relations, as well as architecture for a semester. So I think there's probably a lot of city planning stuff going on in this sketchbook, but here we have another hand. It was always a dream of mine as a kid to have a job as a city planner, so I think that's where a lot of these kind of sketches and ideas come from. And then obviously throw a KKK police sketch right in the middle of it all to top it all off. Here we have some vertical garden plans. And we're back to some actual sketches. This would be game design stuff again. So this is a knight character. Here we have some level designs, some map designs. So I definitely, especially in this time, fell off a lot from sketching physically in the traditional sense, and a lot of the stuff I was doing digitally. So that's why it's a lot more loose and less kind of full pieces and more just ideas. And I believe, yeah, that's the end right there. I think this is logo design at the end here. So kind of just a mishmash of a lot of stuff at the end. But that covers from 2008 to probably 2015. Around 2012-ish, I started taking digital art a lot more seriously, so I have a lot of work from then on the computer. So let's hop over to the desktop. See you guys in a sec. All right, we're on the desktop now. So this will be a quick tour of my digital art career, I guess you can call it. I have collected best that I can all of the pieces I've created. Again, some were lost to just time and hard drive failures and who knows what, but I think this is a good amount of it, and I have ordered it chronologically aside from one little side step, which we'll get into when we do, but let's start it up here. So this was kind of the first style of digital art that I did, would be just photo manipulations, stuff in Photoshop. However, I didn't stick with photo manipulations for too long. I moved on to stuff that much more resembles the sketches I was showing earlier, and stuff that you could definitely see where I developed from. So this looks like it was done in 2012, probably posted on Tumblr would be my guess. And from here, we have a couple pieces that I think were in different sketchbooks. Now this one I actually vividly remember sketching, but it was not in any of the sketchbooks I found. So I'm sure there's a couple sketchbooks lurking around in the shadows at my mom's place that I never got around to getting. This was a very short adventure into a much more painterly look. And I think these actually turned out kind of cool. So there's two of them here. This one's a lot more abstract, and this one's almost like a full scene. I just thought it would be a cool experimentation to hop into. And I am really glad with how these turned out actually, but not a style that I ended up pursuing. We have a return to form here. Now this is a little bit of a cheat because I actually, not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, looked at a couple of my old pieces and redid them. It's still pretty close to how I would have done it when I originally did it, which would be, my guess, 2014, maybe 2015, because that's when this was done as well. And of course, this piece, which I mentioned when we were looking through the sketchbook, you can see where all the hands eventually made their way to. So I would usually either scan or take a picture of my sketches, bring them into Photoshop, trace over them, or use them as reference to build a digital picture. Now, from here is kind of a dead zone. So this was done in 2016, I believe. And the next digital piece I have was done in late 2020, early 2021. So I took an extended break from art, not purposefully, but just kind of how it turned out. And I started to get back into art when I started doing tattoo designs. So as some of you may have noticed, I have a bunch of tattoos on me. Most of them were self-designed. So this is kind of what got me back into art, interestingly enough. And I think there's maybe a lesson there. You never know what's gonna spark your creativity again. So if there's some kind of creative calling that is urging you, follow it. You never know where it leads, because tattoo design is what eventually led me back to doing art, and then more art, and then trying to get better at art, and eventually creating this YouTube channel. So you never know where it's going to lead. So a lot of these I actually do have tattooed on me. This is not one of them. I do have this one tattooed, Princess Mononoke mask, kind of a fan art that I did. A couple of very thick line tattoos. And some of these, I don't know if we actually went through a couple of them before, but some of these, as some of you may be aware, turned into sticker designs and product designs. And this is actually, hopefully, going to be my next tattoo. I want to get this tattooed on my chest. And all three of these are tattooed on me as well. The sliced up Zoidberg is not. This was kind of just for fun. From there, I created a new Instagram account called Jamie Ross Design, where I posted my tattoo designs and eventual art. And that kind of encouraged me to get back into art. I did a lot of, they're not really digital manipulations, but they are a picture that I've taken of either a friend or someone I know, and then drawn over top of. And these are kind of cool. I actually really enjoy doing these. But I also hopped back onto doing original pieces, and this was kind of the start of my return, if you can even call it that, but at least my own personal return to digital pieces again. And of course we have some more draw overs. This is my friend Jordan, and a unnamed person. I actually don't know who this was, so I didn't feel comfortable outlining them, so I just made them a skeleton. More politically charged art, Arrest the Police. And this was my final take on drawing over a picture. This was a picture that was taken from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They have a huge catalog of copyright-free stuff that you can use to draw over or trace or transform in any way that you see fit, and there's no copyright attached to it. It's really cool. Maybe I'll put a link in the description of that catalog. And here we have From Nature You Were Birthed. So this was 2021, and I think this is the official start of where I am now. Like, this was kind of the foundation of where my art is headed even to today. Obviously, the whole video has been about that, but this is kind of I see it as my realization of what kind of style I wanted to pursue. And I know I've said it a few times, but I think this piece will always kind of hold a special place in my heart, just for what it has meant for rebooting my passion for art. From here, I developed a few stickers because I wanted to explore what it meant making products. So I created these 3 stickers, and stickers seemed kind of like a low-risk version of hopping into product design. From here, I jumped back into larger pieces. This is one that I have always been unhappy with, and I can't exactly say why, but it just doesn't fit right with me. And after that came one of my favorite pieces that I've done, at least in 2021, Hostile Takeover. This is definitely the piece that I think I've got the most recognition for. That is, retweets and likes. And obviously you have to put a limit on how much that can actually mean to you. But I think a lot of people appreciate this piece just for its symbolism and the amount of line work that went into creating the dog. A piece that I'll always be proud of, I think. And from here, I did my second sticker set. So 3 of these are charity stickers, these first 3. which are a little bit smaller in design, which is why the canvas isn't as large. And then 3 sticker designs that use new materials. So this is a matte sticker, this is a transparent sticker, and this is a holographic sticker, all still on my Etsy, but this was kind of my second dive into product design. From here, I wanted to do a larger set, so I came up with the idea of deities of a dying world, or deities of a dying world, depending on how you pronounce it. The idea was to create a collection of pieces that all were based in the same world and all connected to these animal deities that were slowly fading away in an ever-advancing human world. I wanted to originally do 6 pieces. I ended up doing 4, but I might still complete the project. I should also mention that at this point, this is 2022. The sticker release was at the very end of 2021, start of 2022. And then these pieces were done afterwards. So this was the first piece done in that set. This was the second piece, which I will always be really proud of how the reflections on the blood from the eyes kind of came out. I think that's really cool. This is the third piece, probably my least favorite of the 4 that I did. I think maybe it's a little too saturated, which was the direction I was going because it's supposed to be a very extravagant and like wealthy deity, but I think I might have gone a little overboard on this. And this was the final piece that I did for that series. I think I might have gone a little crazy on the post effects, all the gradients and color adjustments, because there is some odd dithering that has happened as I exported this image just due to the amount of effects that I added on top of this. But I do think it is a really cool composition. And here we have a fan art for a game called Cult of the Lamb, which I played pretty extensively when it came out. I'm not really too big into doing fan arts, but it is something that I've always wanted to do more of. I feel like it's a cool way to show your appreciation for a piece of art. I'm pretty happy with how this came out, kind of a more realistic take on the Cult of the Lamb. And from here, I kind of had a crisis of artist. I was tired of all my art looking very similar, but I just wanted to explore different styles, and this was done on the iPad. Normally all my art is done on Photoshop, and I just wanted to try something different. So obviously there's still a lot of similarities, there's still heavy use of the line art in this piece, but it is much thinner. There is a much more painterly effect to the color rather than kind of the blocky shadows and highlights I do on a lot of my other pieces. And it was kind of a experimentation, and I do really like how it came out. So my first piece for 2023 was called Fuck AI Art, a very topical piece, I guess you could call it. I'm very happy with how this piece came out. I think it is kind of still dependent on my old, quote unquote, old style, but I tried some different things. I tried coloring the line art rather than just having it black. It's still a little bit thinner than my older pieces, and the overall composition that came together I think was really cool. After Fuck AI Art came out, I also started my YouTube channel, and as part of that we have the subject of my last video, Two-Faced. This is my attempt to really develop my workflow as an artist, right? A lot of these pieces that came before would take 20, 30, 40 hours, and it may not seem like it, but that's just because I kind of have a perfectionist when it comes to line art. I spend a lot of time on small details that really no one notices but me, and Two-Faced was my attempt to do a piece in a couple hours. So this was maybe 3 hours total, but I think overall, in terms of the amount of time I put in compared to my other pieces, it is a huge step up in being able to produce more art more often and practice more and get better. I think it's been a wonderful start to 2023. And with all that said, let's reveal the final piece that I did just a few weeks ago. I actually started the sketch for this when I was unfortunately out east due to a passing in my family. And I think this kind of reflects the symbolism of passing on and letting your memories escape yourself and pass on to the loved ones that shared in those memories. Maybe that's only something that I can see in the symbolism of this art, but that's what it means to me. What I did on this one was try and use different brushes. This is a much more textured brush. Usually I stick to solely the round Photoshop brush. That's pretty much all I've been using digitally for the past 10 years. So this was kind of a step outside of my comfort zone, using a much more textured brush. That is my art tour. I don't want the video going too long, so I'm not even going to set up the camera for an outro. I will just do it here. I hope maybe you found some value in watching this art tour. If you have any questions about my style or anything, feel free to leave a comment below. Consider liking the video if you're still here. All my socials will be linked in the description. And thank you so much. Stay a stranger, stay my friend.